and welcome to the Clerks Strand. For those of you that don't know me, I'm David Jackson. I'm a clerk at Stratford-on-Avon College. I chair the West Midlands branch of the NCN and currently chair of the National Clerks Network Committee. Before we get down to the main business and the challenges agenda, I want to take a few minutes to talk to you today about what's become known as NCN. The National Clerks Network is the only body representing clerks in the sector. It sits within the AOC and membership is available to clerks in all member colleges. Some of us do see at our meetings clerks from non-member colleges for a variety of different reasons, and that's fine, but we remain a membership organisation. The GIST mail base is different from us. It's a valuable tool for sharing info and opinion, and I think Linda's doing an excellent job at the moment in keeping that forum going, and it should complement our work. Members of the NCN committee are elected at regional meetings, and membership of the NCN is therefore in your hands as clerks. For a little while, NCN was at the edges of national debate, if not actually over the fence. Clerks didn't have an effective voice. And I think those of us who are beyond NCN for a little time recognised this and began to push for greater recognition. We can debate the reasons why we're in that position, but in reality it doesn't any good. We were where we are, but I think we all have opinions on that. But there's no point in going there today. We just need to look to the future. And in a series of discussions within AOC, it became clear that while we were not happy, equally so, there was recognition within AOC that relationships and recognition was not right, particularly given the importance attached to the child-principal-clerk relationship. So just over a year ago, we set about reviewing our purpose and aspirations as professional clerks and discussed our aims and objectives with relevant AOC personnel at all levels, from the CEO, chair, governor's advisor, etc. And the result of that, we have agreed a memorandum of understanding with them, and that's on the AOC website, together with standing orders and terms of reference for the NCN. Fundamentally, although the words may have changed a little, it's not changed in real substance. We are what we were before, and we just now have to look to the future and get our voice heard, which it is becoming increasingly so. As a result of that hard work, which began under Richard Atkinson and Claire Kay, we now have come in from the cold, and our professionalism is recognised. We've been invited to participate in debates and reviews, etc., and our voice is being listened to. However, we need to ensure that we respond professionally at all levels. We cannot expect to get everything we're seeking when we're around the table. All we can do is get our voice heard, get it on the table, compromise where we have to do, listen to others, take into account the views, and try and get a balanced opinion and get others to take a balanced opinion of what we're doing. Now, I would recognise, as being a member of NCN for a little while, that communications outside of regional meetings or coming out from the AOC Centre in terms of NCN has not been as good as we need, as it should be. And we need to work on that. We need to get that right, and that's high on the agenda. But we have actually made some progress since last August. And in preparing for today, I suddenly realised it was only actually 6 months that we've been back there getting our voice heard. And I thought I'd just go back over what we've been doing. And I thought, first of all, given that somewhere in some publicity today that's on your table somewhere, I'm apparently down as part of NUS, so I thought I'd start with them. And in terms of NUS, we've helped in giving assistance and comments on their toolkit programme. The fee for those of you that use the Student Governor Toolkit, £250. There was a great deal of debate about how that would go forward. I think we made the point about those of us perhaps that had the toolkit, were we going to pay money again to renew our subscription, etc. And eventually NUS agreed that once we'd made a fee to access the toolkit would be with you, would be available to you and your student governors for the future on an ongoing basis. So that's there. We've participated in their conference and in a think tank looking at where students were. This list I'm about to go through is in actually no particular order, but it's when you're starting to put it together, you're just looking at what we've been doing. We've contributed to the development of the AOC Governance Library, which there's details of on your table. Joe Matthews, Richard Dimbleby have been working on that with Joe Dean from the AOC. And we're working hard within NCN to try and make certain that whatever that documentation and that information is, it actually remains current and up to date as we go forward. And that's not easy with the device of ELSIS, and we've met with ELSIS officials to identify key issues following their demise and trying to make sure as far as we can that some of the things that ELSIS have been involved in will run smoothly as we go forward. It's not easy, we're not there yet, and we're certainly looking to see what's going on around the FE Guild. I've had meetings with BIS officials and discussed a range of related issues for clerks. It's a long time since we've been actually in that forum and invited to participate there. We've raised the need and contributed to the development of a clerk survey. Cathy Brumwell's doing that, some of you will have completed it. At the moment there's quite a good success rate in terms of completed questionnaires. If you haven't already done so, can I encourage you to do so please, because I think that will be a very useful piece of research for us as we go forward and we try in the future to work out what the development requirements are for clerks across the sector and how we differ in our approaches. There's ELSIS are doing an effective broad project. We've had input into that and there'll be more work on that coming out very shortly. We've been quite vocal in lobbying for security of the clerk's qualification. Not there yet, but that's certainly ongoing. Never miss an opportunity to say, where's that qualification going? Who's going to run it in the future? Who's going to manage it? How are we going to actually finish the current cohort going through? So we're pushing quite hard for that. We've been invited to join a sector implementation group, which is quite a high-powered group looking at trying to pull together all the things that go on in relation to governance across the sector. We're at the table in that. We've received an invitation to participate in a ministerial review of governance, looking at, I think it's going to look at effectiveness of boards, governor rewards, incentives, etc. We've yet to see the terms of reference, but again, we're at the table, and that's, I think, quite good that we are there. There's the Joint Audit Code of Practice consultation, which is floating around at the moment. We want to comment on that as it comes towards its fruition. We've lobbied for security of the ELSIS resources, those training materials, etc. They all sit somewhere in ELSIS on the computer, etc. We don't want to lose those to the sector, to us in our work. It's not straightforward, believe you me, but I'm sure as we go forward we will continue to have access to that. We've worked with ELSIS to try and secure funding for the clerk's qualification. Some of you that have been going through have had sponsorship for that. We'd like to see if we can continue to get that into the future. So we've made, I hope, many meaningful contributions to events and to this event. And I think what's important is that now when we get to the room or the table, we don't have to justify our position any longer. We're there, we're accepted as clerks doing the professional roles. And we have secured amendments and drafting changes to key documents as we've gone forward. May not be everything we wanted, but at least it's happened, and we're monitoring carefully the FE Guild and what the implications are for us on that. And finally, I think in the last 6 months or so, we've secured funding, working with Kevin McGladdery from BIS, for a one-day conference for clerks that will take place, hopefully, in June this year, because there's a lot of things happening, there's a lot of things on the agenda at the moment, and that'll be a national event. Can't give you the day yet, but watch this space. It will, hopefully, that it will happen. So the future's bright. We need to ensure it stays that way. And I think, how can we work together? Because I've talked about our professionalism, I've talked us to being there, but the NCN are only a small group of us. There's, I think, 9 with about 3 co-optees. That group is constantly changing, and we need to get new members, new blood coming through. Because, I mean, I've been at the table for more years than I care to say. That situation isn't going to happen into the future. We do need some people there that are keen, that can stand up, participate in that national debate and come forward. So if anybody is really interested in working in there, come along, talk to me. Talk to me about in your regional events when we're looking for people to take this role on. I mean, I think I've been here so long because, I mean, I kept saying that, you know, you need a new rep at my regional meetings, and they kept saying, David, carry on, will you? And that's been how I think I've ended up at the table for so long. But that's not necessarily healthy. I think I've been there too long. We do need more new blood coming through as we go forward. So my message is the door's open for clerks to participate in a range of issues. NCN are doing that, and it is our profession. We want to join in the professional debate. We don't want to leave it to others to do to us. It's better if we're in there doing so. So thank you. There's, I think, just one word of thanks I want to say, that just to my two vice chairs for the support that they're giving me, Sheila and Natalie, but also I think to Joanne Dean at the AOC offices, and Kevin McGladdery as well, for the support that they've given us during this last 6 months. So I thought, for those of you that don't know, around the room, I'm just going to ask people to put their hand up for a minute now. I hate doing this, but sorry guys, you've got to just sort of be recognised. So Sheila Selwood, one of our vice chairs. Sheila is, I can't see with the lights down here. Natalie, I've seen Natalie over there. Glyn is over that side. Susan Simpson. Thank you, Susan. Sorry, missed you there. They're taking over from Melvin, who I think will be leaving us in July. Claire Kay, she's somewhere down this. No, over there. Thank you, Claire. Helen Bars. Lily Garth. I'm not seeing Lily today. I don't think she's here, is she? From Southwest. And Eleanor Lewis from the Sixth Form Colleges Forum. And the North East are currently rotating their representatives. So if you're here from the North East and you've been down to NCN, you can all put your hands up, or you're intending to come. So I think that's picked up everybody. Okay, so that's what we've been doing. Any questions on anything I've been saying? Anything anybody wants to query about NCN, how they operate? Silence. Right, okay. So let's get on with the challenges agenda that we were set to discuss today. ELSIS recently published Challenges for FE College Governance and Priorities, which I think is in your packs today. And this publication has been exceptionally well received, and we all agreed at NCN that it would be good to debate the challenges here, and to do that, Susie Knight will facilitate our discussion. So Susie, over to you for a little while.
Thank you, David. That was very interesting, and an interesting period, no doubt, is in front of us, all of us. As David said, we're just going to do an activity now around the paper that came out just before Christmas, which I'm sure most of you know and have read, and was researched by Reg Chapman, who sadly died just before Christmas. I'm sure most of you will have come across Reg in your time. I worked with him on many projects, and he'll be much missed. And this was a typical example of his excellent work. It's concise, it's short, it's pithy, but it actually frames some really important challenges for governance. And I have got a presentation, and I have put it on your tables. I'm not actually going to do it because I think you'll all be familiar with it, I'm sure, and I don't think you need me to go through the content. I'm just going to frame it a little bit, and then I think the really important thing is on your tables, you're going to each look at some of those challenges and look at what will that mean for governance in the future. So just to put it into some context, what Reg was doing was building really on the previous very detailed piece of research review into governance, which was the Schofield Review. And in the context of what's currently going on, the economic situation, funding cuts, a market-based approach to the provision of public services, and that being then enshrined in the new Education Act, and in New Challenges, New Chances, what were the implications and challenges for governance? And he came up with 15 challenges, and he's identified those within the paper. And what we're going to ask you to do, I've identified 3 challenges for each table to look at. So, and your challenges are identified on the piece of paper that's in the slot with the number of the table. So it tells you that what your 3 challenges are. And Katie is going to now give out the challenges that you're going to look at on your table. And you'll have about half an hour to look at those challenges. So what we'd like you to do is to identify 3 sponsors on each table, 1 for each challenge. Does that make sense? Okay. And then that sponsor, your role is to manage the discussion and the flip chart and do the feedback, okay, at the end. So we're going to have half an hour on what do you think the implications are, and half an hour feeding back from each of the tables, okay? You'll find that table 1's got challenge 1 to 3, and so has table 6. All right, so there's 2 tables with the same set of challenges. You can organise how you want to do this. You might want to each of the sponsors might want a small group on the table and you want to do them simultaneously, or you may choose that the whole table does them, but you need to manage your time if you do that, so that you're ready in about half an hour to feed back your major points. Okay? Everybody clear? Great. I think most people have probably looked at all 3 now, it would appear. What I'm going to ask you to do, I will come to each table and I'll ask you to come and look to talk about the sponsor, to talk about a specific challenge. So could we start with table 1, and could you, your sponsor for challenge 1, could you bring it up to the board and then just tell us, just very quickly, the key issues and points that you made?
Good afternoon. We were dealing with question 1, number 1, which was compliance governance. We thought that this applied to many boards. To deal with this, you could change your governance model, continuum there between Carver and traditional. But we started then talking about prioritising, and dependent on where your college was, whether you're outstanding or not, the amount of time that you spend dealing with strategy, the accountability, and we were talking about horizontal accountability there, and monitoring as well. That you should review your board plan, that the amount of time that you're going to spend on these, where your college is, do you spend more time on that one, or that one? And then we felt that everybody should be, as we've talked about a lot today, that everybody should be up to speed on teaching and learning. And at the end of the day, really, it's about governors being able to make well-informed decisions. If they can't do that, they'll be struggling. And if all else fails, bring in outsiders, whether that's peers, whether it's businesses, whether it's employers. And we were talking about the job centre, actually. Apparently they're very able and willing to come in and help boards at the moment. That's number 1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got a question that they want to ask about that? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to table 6, and you should have challenge 2.
Right, challenge 2. I apologise for those that sat through my workshop earlier. I'm still very, very active and very, very energetic. So, marvellous. Challenge 2 was polite consensus. The opportunity for governors to have free and good discussion, but there are many colleges where the powerful debate over the big issues isn't present, and that a number of governors want polite consensus and want to avoid conflict. What our table came up with, that the role of the chair to ensure that there's effective challenge and that all governors are able to contribute is critical. We did recognise that that can be difficult. Getting a really good chair is a challenge for every college, but we do feel that's critical to the chair's role, but also that the clerks are there to support that and help recognise issues as they arise. And also we did talk about the balance of how papers and agendas are constructed to make sure that governors are able to focus on risk and strategy and actually engage in the debate about risk and strategy, so they're not just receiving a lot of information or papers for information, that they themselves are being used to engage in the debate, so there isn't a polite consensus. They're actually drawn into the debate because it's about risk and strategy and not about compliance.
Okay, thank you. Very succinct. Everybody concur with that? Anybody want to challenge that at all? Okay, great. Table 2, could you do challenge 4? I'll come back so I'm giving everybody a chance.
Never leave the room when they're allocating roles, because this is why I'm up here. Thank you very much, guys. So the question here was business that drives out education. I think generally the table agreed. However, a couple of people said that they felt their boards were already focused on core educational business. Others felt that they were moving their boards towards that, but the boards were rather felt out of their comfort zones with that. And then another view was that post-Ofsted, that will certainly refocus remaining boards, because there will be a paradigm shift. So what the catalyst for change that we identified was things that the clerk can do to help boards move towards this focus is support, giving support, training and development, planning agendas around the topics of core educational needs, governance structures, understanding provision and community needs, and giving governors, or ensuring governors are given the right information so they can make the right decisions and understand what it is that they are looking at and what's underpinning the data they're presented with. Is there anything else? No? No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any questions? Okay, thank you. Could we have table 7 and challenge 5? This one is the variable target setting and monitoring challenge.
Yeah, we did 4, 5 and 6, and we didn't have much information on 6, so I'm glad we got 5. What can clerks do? It's about providing the level of what the governors require, and setting targets needs benchmarking and trends. And one of the things we identified was that whilst you may be able to measure accurately your own current performance, when we benchmark our performance, we're looking at 12-month-old data. And that's one of the issues. I think the other issue is about how governors behave, we have to remember we're dealing with volunteers, and that slips away all the time. And how much time and effort and training and understanding can you put into volunteers? But we have got governor training. It's about how they do understand the data, how they work across the board. But the other thing I think we had a debate on our table was the difference between a traditional committee system and the Carver model, and then how much information you got. And I was told, a Carver model, they last about 2.5 hours. Well, one of my committees lasts 2.5 hours looking at data. So I think there is an issue around governor training on that. The traffic light system, I think the vast majority of people do it. It works well, but it's do governors understand what's below that traffic light system data so that they can ask the right questions. And what you might do is get a front cover with the traffic light data for a committee and detailed reports below. If you're in a Carver model, you won't get all those reports to the same extent. And so it was about, it was linking, not just understanding the data, but understanding where that data put you as a college nationally. And the data you're comparing against is 12 months old.
Okay, thank you very much. And Carla, you just have been doing some work on some of this, which will come out in the not too distant future. So if you didn't go to Carla's workshop earlier, there's some really interesting results from the research that she's done into challenge and asking the right questions. And I'm sure she'd talk to you about it very energetically if you ask. That was interesting that you said that you were glad you didn't do challenge 6, because that challenge is horizontal accountability vacuum. And Reg made quite a point in this paper about the shift from vertical to horizontal accountability. And lots of people are saying, yes, but what does that really mean? And I think that's a really interesting current question. I wonder if table 2, did you do that one? Yes, I'm sure you did. I saw you. Did you do something on it? We did. Yeah. Could you just share your thoughts with us very quickly? Okay, could you share the microphone, please? Thanks.
I think the general feeling was that this is an unrealistic expectation in the current landscape, and that in some ways the Ofsted expectations seem to contradict this. One of the things that you were saying was about lip service.
Yeah. I've been struck mute. Yeah. Part of it is that, of course, because of the foundation code, we're all having to pay lip service to it pretty quickly and show that we're engaging with communities and stakeholders. But in fact, stakeholders are fairly suspicious and they think it's a sales job, as opposed to a genuine two-way dialogue. So what we're doing at my own college is to set up a matrix of how we engage with staff, students and other stakeholders, and do it in small bites rather than trying to sort of knock it off as one thing. But I still think it's not a realistic expectation.
Okay, anybody want to add to the debate or say something about this shift from vertical to horizontal? There's somebody over there. Katie, you can shift the... It's probably not. It's really difficult in this room.
I'm going to be challenging, because I like doing that. I would say that as clerks around this room, we can't be in a position where we say we pay lip service to stakeholder engagement and horizontal accountability. I'm shocked that we're still in that place. I thought that certainly at the last ELSIS conference, we had lots of examples of how engagement with communities and engagement with stakeholders had moved on, and I'm quite shocked to say that we can still say that we don't understand horizontal accountability.
Do you have any examples yourself?
I did New College Nottingham did a complete piece at the last ELSA's conference about how we had. Now, I know that not everybody can do what we did. We were in a particularly unique situation with a new principal, etc. However, the thought of not being able to engage with our communities in this day and age, I just say we need to think harder if we're not doing it.
Can you give us just maybe one little example that there's been successful in your experience?
Yes, we restructured our mission around a conversation with stakeholders, which included students, which included staff, which included business leaders, council leaders, etc. And that wasn't a lip service conversation. That was getting people in a room like this and saying, what do you need your college to do? And the feedback we got shaped the whole of our mission, and is what we've been working on for the last 18 months. People out there do want to engage with their local college, and they do want them to actually deliver what is needed in their communities, and we do need to get that right.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Sorry. Hold on just a sec, because can you... Whilst that's arriving, I think the other thing, and I've put it on the board over there as an issue, is we also need to kind of start thinking outside the boardroom, because there is governance of particular projects and particular things that we're doing. And often I ask the question, is there some governance of that piece of work, that really major change that you're doing? And people look at me and go, no. Now, actually, there are specific projects with people with expertise who could oversee them and in an independent way and report back to governors on them. So there's a kind of middle layer between the operational end and the boardroom end that it might be worth considering, because I think that's partly what this shift is about. You might want to come back on that in a minute.
I think there's 2 points. I think as a table we agree with exactly what you were talking about, because although we're talking about the board shift and the board emphasis, we very much felt, particularly in the London colleges, that the principal and the chief exec role was fundamental in making sure there was some community engagement. And some of it in London is a bit harder for us in terms of there's one LEP for the whole of London, one. So, when you've got that number of colleges competing, it's a bit harder to have the whole employer engagement and community focus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this debate will no doubt run and run, so, but I think we ought to move on to some of the other challenges. Table 3, could you share with us challenge 7? Okay, have you got, which one would you like to do? Which one? Are you going to do 7? No. Oh, right. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay. This is about taking and not managing the bigger risks.
Right, shall I try again? We keep hearing about the new freedoms, and principals are now thinking about moving away from core business. And between us on our table, we've got 2 of us have colleges who are now sponsoring UTCs, and one of the colleges is now sponsoring an academy. And my own college, we're doing a UTC in a free school. This now impacts on not only staff time, but governors' time, because we're having to provide governors to sit on the various governing bodies, which is a potential risk. And my own college, with the UTC we're doing, we're providing all these services for the UTC, all pro bono. So we're actually picking up the costs for running the finance department, HR, I'm going to be clerk, and one of our directors has actually been personally involved with the UTC for the last 20 months, as well as doing his own job. And I don't think principals realise when they come up with these ideas to go down this UTC route, what it actually impacts on their own staff time. That is all being, and also one of the other colleges thought about merging, and that had, with doing the due diligence and everything, that impacted on their staff time and governors' time as well. Now, we've managed that by adding the UTC and the free schools and the academies onto the strategic risk register, which will be looked at by the audit committee. And also, that will then be scrutinised by the internal auditors. The chair of the UTC, of our chair, is on the UTC Academy Trust, so he can manage the risk there for the college. And also there will be regular reports back from the UTC and the free schools and the academies to the main governing body of the college. But there is a big risk, if you don't manage it properly, is the reputation to your own college. That's as far as we got.
Okay, thank you. Table 8, would you like to do challenge 7? Where's table 8? This is the avoiding the big questions.
Yes, hello. I'm a bit of an interloper in a sense because I'm not yet a clerk. So I may not speak a language that you entirely understand just yet, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, this was around the big questions and really the kind of key drivers which are current at the minute, being policy and funding, strategic governance, and Ofsted and the Common Inspection Framework and so on. Our conversation on policy and funding was really largely around the need for other sources of funding and the sort of the implications of that for the governing body in terms of mission and character, the need to oversee the processes as the corporation would move through those kinds of discussions, any due diligence issues that were emerging from that, considerations of whether the skills base of the board was appropriate for moving in that direction and whether additional or different members would be needed to make sure that the board was adequately prepared for that kind of journey. And also the concern about retaining appropriate focus on core activities whilst all this additional stuff was going on. In terms of strategic governance, as defined by sort of localism or freedoms and flexibility, there was definitely a sense that this was likely to mean a greater workload for clerks, and that was an important consideration, and also the need to be talking to students and getting feedback from them as we go. In terms of Ofsted and the new Common Inspection Framework, the corporation needs to have confidence in the data that it's dealing with, and that I think has cropped up various times during the course of the day. We're also aware of the increased emphasis on teaching, learning and assessment, and governors being adequately prepared for that important shift. The need to distinguish between governance and management as we go, and not having governors straying too far into the management of colleges. The consequences of poor inspection, or the fear of that poor inspection, if that's a concern in the lead-up, knowing that inspection for that particular college is not too far away, and the way again in which that can distract attention away from other matters. And also possibly the performance management of senior post holders with respect to outcomes from inspection, and indeed the preparation for inspection.
Thank you very much. Now, table 12, the renegade table over there. Would you like to do challenge 9? There's always one, isn't there?
You're 11 and a half.
Meldrew table. We didn't know whether we were the grumpy old men or the Victor Meldrew table. I decided we were the Victor Meldrew table. Can I just comment very quickly on something that was mentioned earlier in the context of Challenge 9? And it's the statement in Challenge 2 about feedback from observations at governor meetings indicating they're frequently good free discussion, but rarely powerful debate over the big issues that research shows key features in high-performing teams. So when we looked at Challenge 9, and we hadn't looked at that point then, but I've looked at it since, we talked about volunteers and the voluntary nature of boards. We talked about pressure on board members' time, and we talked about the need to prioritise that in terms of business that's pertinent to the college, and balancing that with board self-evaluation, and that is a challenge. The second question that fell out of that was, what would a board self-assess against, and what is the impact of that on the outcomes for learners? And that's an even bigger challenge. So going through a process of self-evaluation, laudable though it may be, what is the outcome? And I used at the Northwest Clerks meeting a few weeks ago the term, you don't fatten the pig by weighing it, and we seem to keep finding different ways of weighing the pig. Another quick comment before I move on to Challenge 10, if I may, very, very quick. We've heard throughout the day about Ofsted. We believe, and genuinely believe, that Ofsted shouldn't really matter. What we should be driven by is the quality of what we do for the learners that are in our care at any time. If Ofsted come along and concur with that and your board thinks we're delivering a quality product, all well and good. But we should be driven by, and the board should be driven by, the quality of teaching and learning and the outcome for learners. That's an impassioned view. The second bit, very quickly, Challenge 10, diversity, tokenism, or should it be the best person for the job? You can tell, I didn't write this, one of my colleagues did, and he was emotional because he went from small writing to shouting at us with the capitals on question 10. So it was tokenism, or should it be the best person for the job? And the other question was, under the new freedoms, new challenges, well, the new freedoms, which are really like the emperor's new clothes, because everybody talks about them, but nobody can see what they are. How do you reconcile diversity in boards with the talk that we have with some colleges of reducing board size to 5, 6, 7 members? Where's the diversity and where's the representation? I know you can have different models, but we're talking about how boards have a diverse range of opinion and views in critical decision making. I suggest that a board of 3, 4 or 5, in fact, if you've got to have a student, you've got to have the principal, or you may have the principal and a member of staff. When you have a board of 5, it's a bit like the lunatics running the asylum. Thank you.
Thank you for that interesting perspective. Okay, now, table 9. Does anybody, do you want to come back on the diversity question? Table 9. Where are you, table 9? Where's table 9? Wave at me. Oh, there you are. Do you want to do... Where are they? I can't see you. Right, table 9. Thank you. I can't see you over there. Do you have something you'd like to say on the diversity issue? Do you want to... So you've got nothing more to add to that?
So we had different words for what is basically the same. The fact that you want diversity to get the different views, but first and foremost, you've got to have the skills you need within your board. And that does come first. And we just looked at different ways of trying to get diversity. But it is an issue.
Okay.
Especially with small boards.
Thank you. And I think the thing I said earlier about, different sponsors of different things may be the answer to some of the diversity issues as well. But I certainly think that diversity is still a big issue across the sector. Table 5, I'm going to ask you if you've got something to say on challenge 15, because we cannot end without saying something about clerks as undervalued change agents. Can we? So have you table, what did I just say, sorry, table 5?
It's on, yeah. I haven't written that much. I think we did run out of time slightly. The group thought that there was a lot of variation in the roles that clerks are currently doing. Not taking these in order, but the varied time commitment seems to be just one very, very differing across the sector between clerks, sometimes doing 2 days, 3 days, some clerks are full-time, some clerks doing a purely clerking role, but then having to also have elements of admin. We also discussed the admin support was essential, that the clerk couldn't manage without some sort of a deputy or admin support. And of course, you've got the issue there if you're only doing a 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, it's important that you have, that support. We also talked about the perception of the clerk's role, that being the perception from perhaps other staff in the college, SMT, other governors, other colleges, just generally if you tell somebody you're a clerk, a lot of people don't really understand what a clerk actually does. We regard ourselves, we certainly feel we regard ourselves as a very valuable resource, and that there are opportunities to develop that, certainly with all the changes in the new era. But again, it's down to the Board of Governors as to what that clerk's role should be and will be going into the future. So the last point, and I'm sorry we did run out of time, is that we did perhaps feel there was some sort of feeling undervalued as change agents. I'm sure that some of the other groups have probably written quite a bit more controversial comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody want to add to that at all, particularly? Okay, you might be aware that there's a piece of research going on, I think ELSIS is conducting at the moment, into defining what the role of the clerk should be in terms of being able to effectively represent what is actually a very difficult role. And it will be interesting to see what that looks like when it's completed, but hopefully it will support the importance of the clerk. And as you can tell, even Ofsteds have recognised that it's an important role. And can I just say thank you to all of you for all the support that we've had in the design and development of the clerk's qualifications. I'm sure you'll all be aware that it's a slightly contentious issue at the moment about what will happen with them. But certainly the level 4 qualification was very successful, and we're in the middle of the level 5. It doesn't finish till Christmas. But we've had a lot of support from the Clerks Network and from many clerks in the development and the delivery of it. And I'd just like to say thank you for all of that. And let's hope the thing can continue into the future. And thank you for all your hard work this afternoon. That's been really useful, and I hope you found it useful, because I think this is a discussion that all boards need to have, and this is a useful paper to be able to start that conversation with governors and look at some of these challenges. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the evening.
Okay, so can I just finish again by saying thank you to Susie for that, and just to say that the notes that we've got there, we will take those away. We will look at them again as part of NCN as well, to see what we can do in needs of future development for clerks. And I think that's enough from me, apart from the fact that in terms of the clerk survey that I mentioned, which feeds into the piece of work that Elsis is doing on about the role of clerks, I was meant to say that they would like to close that down on Monday and call it a day. So if you haven't completed it, could you please do it first thing Monday morning, so that by close of play on Monday, we've got a few more in there. I'd like to see it up there quite high. It's growing every day. Let's keep it going that way. And I'll finish now just by saying a big thank you, and it's a pity that there's not more of them in the room, but Elsis have given tremendous support to clerks over the last couple of 3 years, and I think from this platform I'd just like to say publicly thank you to Elsis, and thank you for the very professional way in which they're going about their duties at the moment, at a time when they don't know what their own futures is. We must acknowledge that. And in particular, I'd just like to say thank you to Katie, wherever Katie's gone, she's still in the room, for everything that you've done for us.